Hi, everyone. Welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with myself and Tanya. Our goal is to normalize, educate, and inspire conversations around diversity and inclusion. We are both coaches, both mothers, and both entrepreneurs. While we're not experts in diversity, our aim is to bring people together who have something interesting and unique to say around diversity and inclusion. Today, we are joined by the lovely Shalma Shah, and Tanya is going to introduce in a bit more detail, and she's going to then come in and talk about herself in even more detail so we can really get to know her.
Yes, Salma, thanks so much. We've had a few back and forth and life and COVID, etc., that has delayed the recording of this interview, but it was meant to be. We've realized Salma is actually publishing a book in April when this will be aired, and it's called Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging in Coaching. The three of us are coaches. Salma is an executive coach and also a supervisor, and she's the founder of Mastering Your Power Coach. It's a training program that's accredited by the ICF. It really focuses on championing diversity, belonging, and inclusion. So we are very proud to have you here. You are kind of the description of what we're trying to do here, Anne and myself, to bring diversity and inclusion in coaching and to talk about topics that may feel uncomfortable. Thank you for being here, Salma.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me along today and such a wonderful introduction.
Thank you. We wanted you to also share with us your story and more precisely, how you decided to launch this program, how you decided to write this book. Just share with us.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually going to start further back than that. So my personal family story is that my parents came to UK in the early 1960s, and I always describe them as the good immigrants, heads down, working really hard, grateful for everything this country had to offer. And I grew up in a fairly solid family, and however, I was the first girl in my family to go to grammar school. In grammar school, there was two Asian girls, myself and a friend of mine who I met up with after about 25 years the other week. We both actually spoke for the first time of what it was like to be two only Asian girls in the class. The first girl in my family to go to university. Again, my degree was in psychology, and I was the only, again, one of two Asian girls on that course. When I graduated from university, I would say I fell into the tech sector. This is in the early 90s, and that sector was booming. And in hindsight, what I loved about it was that because it was fairly new and it was booming, there wasn't as much hierarchy in place. And it was the kind of sector where you could, psychology graduate, I'm not very technical, but if you could figure it out, of moving around inside that sector itself. And to a degree, I figured it out, but I guess I was blind to a level where there was a ceiling. But the good immigrant's daughter, I was just very happy just to get a nice corporate role, traveling the world on assignment. And I was just very, very delighted with that. And I guess, I'd been working in tech for a while when I started to have this niggly feeling that I wanted to go back to helping people in some way. And I was on a retreat type holiday in Greece, and I was talking to someone, and I said to her, I just don't know what to do. I know I don't want to stay in tech in 20 years. I know that for sure. But I just don't know what I want to do. And she said to me, she spoke to me for about half an hour. And in half an hour, I had great clarity. And I said to her, what do you do for a living? This is 20 years ago, by the way. She said to me, I'm a coach. I said, you know what? This is what I want to do. So I got off the plane and booked myself onto a coach training program within 24 hours. And that's when my coaching journey began. It's just almost 20 years ago. And I carried on working in tech, but evenings and weekends I was coaching, and I absolutely loved it. And I didn't do it for the money. Of course, I was getting some, payment for it, but it was really about, absolutely loved it. I'd say 2006, I decided to leave tech and just go for it, which was very hard for me because Good Immigrant's Daughter was also very risk averse. Be grateful, don't take risks, play it safe. And I, started working for myself, and I was very happy delivering programs, doing one-to-one work in the coaching space, coach training, leadership development. And I decided to, at that time, focus my skills back into the tech sector. It's a sector I knew well and knew its challenges around soft skills. But then I'll say a few years ago, and maybe it's when you're about to hit your 5th decade, you start to ask yourself certain questions. And when I reflected back, I thought, my coach training was amazing. And I always say, I stood on the shoulder of giants. Great training, but there was something missing. And what was missing from that training was a lack of understanding of what it is if you are from a minority group in a majority space. Coaching is all about moving people forward. And I absolutely understand and accept that. However, if you're someone from a minority group, and minority group can mean social class, it can mean gender, it can mean all those threads of diversity we hear about. It's not as easy to move forward as simply to go for your goals and your ambitions, because there are lots of layers of complexity that hold us back. And when lockdown happened on March the 23rd in 2020, I had some space in my life, in my diary, to just sit back and reflect. And I decided to launch Master Your Power. I felt coach training, this is not diversity training, coach training needs to recognize the complexity of the lived experience. This does not mean we go back and analyze the past, but we have to hold the past with sensitivity and with composure, and to allow people we are coaching to move forward. And since then, the work has just absolutely taken over in a very, very good way.
I got to say, I've just got little goosebumps when you talked about the importance of acknowledging the lived experience. And it's so important. And it's something I think a lot of times is overlooked, because people go, just as you say, it's the past, it's the past. No, we're still living this lived experience. For people in ethnic minority groups, we're still experiencing, yes, it's come some distance in comparison perhaps to years ago, but we're still living it, and we know that we're still living it if you live in that skin.
Yeah. And Salma, I just wanted to say before you continue that, you're describing, you joined coaching 20 years ago, which was, there's been such an evolution in the world of coaching. So from 20 years ago, joining the coaching industry it was even more brave in that sense, being a minority person as well, being the only person, from a minority, maybe one of the few, to have joined, etc. So I think we have to, we can't underestimate that big difference, because even now coaching is not democratized in for every minority group. Some of our guests we interviewed, they've highlighted that, how they want to bring more coaching in people that looked more like them, etc., etc. So you doing that 20 years ago is a real proof of courage, I would say. And I'm wondering, that we're going to talk about that evolution, obviously, but I want to highlight as well that, Mastering Your Power coach training, you created that before George Floyd. It's not something that you've done on the back of George Floyd. So it's something that you were really promoting for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. With blessings to George Floyd, stars are aligned. Yeah. My work was already in development. It was already happening. It was out there, and the stars aligned, and people want to listen to what I was saying for various reasons. And I feel that it is very important that we do actually offer coaching to everybody. I feel it's very important that, the minority voice is heard, that someone doesn't speak for the minority person when it comes to coaching.
Sorry. When we talk about George Floyd, and we've seen that there's been a lot of, I would say, development around diversity and inclusion since his death for many reasons, and it's globally as well. Companies, individuals educating themselves more about diversity and inclusion, companies as well making a mark. In your view, what do you think has changed specifically in the coaching world since George Floyd's death? When we look at issues around diversity and inclusion, as you said, that everyone should be getting coaching, everyone should be having an opportunity to improve themselves. Do you think there's been much change since George Floyd's death?
I think there's been an interest in doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think very often in organizations, the senior top team want to do something. And at the lower levels of an organization, there's a challenge and a problem. There's a messy middle where we all get a bit stuck. And a lot of my time I spend is maneuvering the messy middle. There's definitely more talk about it. However, I do strongly feel that the voice of the minority person needs to be heard in the coaching space and not have others speak for us. Because one of the things that comes up, when I say minority, it's not just about race, it's about all the threads. Yes. So when I speak up about it, I think it's important that we hear the stories as well. Because if you are a minority person, there could be many occasions where you haven't felt seen and you haven't felt heard. Mm. And often that is being replicated in coaching as well.
Mm. Yes.
And how?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Now, I just wanted to follow up on that question as well, given that you do leadership coaching as well. What is one of the key things that you would share with others in how to tackle this problem around diversity and inclusion? Like, what tips would you share with people or the listeners today around that? And
okay, so I feel we only have a certain amount of energy. Yeah, we only have a certain container of energy. It's not endless. I only have a certain number of hours in the day and in the week. So for me, it's about opening the doors which nudge and gently open, rather than spending my energy knocking on the doors which are not really opening, and to be very selective with who I work with and how I work. I'm open to everybody. However, it's important that we choose where we spend our energy and where it is going to make a difference. And I don't have any expectations of massive difference overnight. Mm-hmm. This is work that we are gently nudging through. And some doors have opened very, very wide and open, and some doors are taking a bit longer. But it's where we expand our energy is very, very important.
Yeah, and sorry, I wanted to ask you about, particularly about the program, the Mastering Your Power Coach Training. So, if we have a listener here who's curious about becoming a coach themselves, or maybe work in a company and might want to learn about the power of coaching and how they can use it in their organization, can you tell us a bit about how it's structured and what are the takeaways from the program?
Sure, absolutely. So it's a program for everybody. It's an inclusive program. It's not just for minority. The program is designed with a golden thread of inclusion, belonging, and equity all the way through. It's not a tag-on module. It has the foundations and principles of what coaching is: holding the space, powerful questions, active listening. But what is embedded, and this is from the very first day you start that training course, you learn to listen for systems, for the lived experience. You learn to listen for a sense of belonging, a sense of inclusion, psychological safety. And from the very beginning, you are, as a coach, learning to be curious about what else could be happening. So it's got this process of all the foundations that we need to be powerful coaches are there. We don't give advice, it's not mentoring, all the things you'd expect. But the golden thread is people being trained on it are learning to listen systemically. They're learning to listen from the lens of the lived experience of someone from a minority, background. And what I'm also finding is that, if you think about someone who could be from a majority, whatever majority means, background, we have all had an experience where we felt we don't belong. Everyone has at some point. We haven't felt safe. And my process is to help everyone to connect with that part of themselves.
Yeah.
That they've experienced it, rather than tell people what to do or to give advice or to give 10 tips of how to interview or coach somebody who isn't. It's not about that. It's really about connecting with that part of ourselves. So the course is very much personal development, self-awareness, and then tools and the methodologies and the competencies to coach powerfully.
Yes, it's a fundamental element that is missing in a lot of coach trainings, and it was missing in mine, as well as understanding and learning from diverse authors in the coaching world and outside the coaching world, in the mental health world. Yes, and I understand that you share also, your reading list is very diverse. It's not just about a certain type of white-looking male, authors.
No, and in the training, we look at trauma, and we look at, trauma can show up in coaching. It doesn't always need therapy. How to hold the space for trauma. Very often the person has never been heard, and allowing them to share the story can help somebody move on.
I'm really interested as well to hear about your book that's coming out on the 3rd of April. I know it's, I'll leave it to you. Just tell us more about it, please.
I guess I say the book found me as much as I found the book. I'm an avid reader, and I kept getting asked, can you tell me more about this? And I said, well, something, these topics that you're asking me about are covered in the book. So the book is it's a combination of case studies, practical guide, practical tips, but the case studies are based on the lived experience. And we cover all the themes from inclusion, belonging, psychological safety, lived experience, trauma, all these topics that we've touched on. I go into each chapter. In each chapter, I interview somebody. We've changed some, personal details. Then we explore how would this come up in coaching? How could you handle it in coaching? And the book, although it's called Coaching, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging in Coaching, my feeling is that it's actually a leadership book as well. It's for everyone. Anyone who needs to support, coach, lead someone and is concerned about how to have powerful conversations or even clumsy conversations, there could be some tips in there. And of course, it's been, I've sent it out for a few people to test it, to read it through. And so far the feedback, because it's only getting published in a few weeks, has been, gosh, there's something in there really moved me. I got one thing out of it, and someone I sent it out to sent me a number of messages over the next few weeks saying, I can't believe this, I now understand why I can't live near my family. I don't feel I belong. So I feel it's for everybody.
Wow, well, that's awesome. So you actually, the chapters, so the book is called Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging in Coaching, and each chapter is an interview or coaching interview with a client?
Okay. Yeah, it's case studies, but then what I do is I back up the case study with academic research, because I feel for some that's important.
Yeah.
And then we also look at how does this show up in coaching. A lot of the people in the book are coaches, so they have a level of self-awareness as well. So we're looking at how does it show up in coaching. Then also, again, I always say to everyone, look, you have to do the work on yourself. So each chapter has also got some reflective work for the reader. to connect with themselves.
And this book is mostly for coaches, or it could be for anyone?
I think it's for anyone. Yeah, it's for anyone.
I'm also really interested to hear, because I know you've worked with a very impressive list of clients from the FTSE 100 and lots of other well-known names out there. Be really interesting to hear some of your own aha moments that you received from working with them. So just kind of looking back, we talk about coaches and its constant development. We be aware of our own personal development and enriching our own minds in that sense. So it'd be really interesting to hear what kind of aha moments you've also had working for these companies.
Yeah, some phenomenal moments actually, and I think one of the things I've learned along the journey is that when you stick your neck out, you have to also have the courage to receive things that you may trigger you, and I've been triggered. So what I've discovered is that it's my clients and the people who do the training with me. That's why I'm there. That's why I'm doing it. So when I see somebody who, I remember I had a lady on my course. She worked for a large public sector organisation. When I interviewed her for it, she said to me, "I didn't know people like you and me were coaches." And I remember it left me winded, actually. Now, 2 years later, she is rocking it. She's actually, most of the people who come on my courses, they go on to do better and better, or they leave the organisation and climb up the career ladder, but from a place of strength, because this is all about mastering your power. Mastering your power is making powerful decisions from a place of strength. So I absolutely love it when I see someone who's worked with me go on and thrive and live a powerful life. I always talk about things like resilience, and then I talk about dysfunctional resilience. So dysfunctional resilience, when you keep going, a bit like my parents probably, the good immigrant, no matter what's happening, you keep going, but you're not thriving. Coming from a place of fear sometimes, of survival. And I talk about, no, we're not going to do dysfunctional resilience. We are going to learn how to have healthy resilience. So the many of the clients I've worked with, this is exactly my it's what makes me do it. It makes me get up and, if I get a trigger moment because of something I'm seeing or hearing, I just picture my clients, I picture the people in my courses, I picture the changes and differences it's making, and absolutely I can go forward.
Love that. And I wanted to ask you a coaching question. As coaches, asking you a coaching question. You've written this book and everything, and I'm just wondering your vision, how you would want it to impact the coaching world. So if you, not just the coaching world, but like you said, it's open to everybody, but if you had to say in 10 years time, how do you vision the impact the book would have?
Well, the ideal thing would be that we are not having this conversation in 10 years time. Yeah, the ideal thing for me would be that the coaching profession, if you go on to any, coaching provider, it's not just a token minority person, it's everybody. So for me, I look at the profession, I have my traffic light system, if you'd like to hear about it. So my traffic light system is red, amber, green. The reds in my system, the coaching, are who are not really open to this and don't think it's important, think it's about moving people forward. I don't think we should be looking at it this way. I'm not here to spend time with the reds. My ambers they really want to do something, and they are curious and they're open, but they don't know what to do. They're quite fearful of saying the wrong thing. My instinct is that 90% plus are in the amber space right now. And that's the space I want to work with. That's the space that's going to take this work forward. Then there's the green. That's you people. You're in. You know it. You get it. We've lived it. You're open to it. And in a way, for us, it's about few at last be feeling heard and seen. So for me, that amber group, which is massive, is who are going to take. We need allies in this space.
Yeah.
And the word allies is overused, but it's so important, and we need our allies.
Yeah, so we have 10 years to move the amber into green, and red into amber somehow. That'd be nice as well.
They will follow, hopefully. But we only have a certain amount of energy, and it's where we focus our energy. So right now, my energy is the greens are all on the bus already.
Love
I
that
love
energy.
the concept of the traffic light system. As you were just speaking, I was just feeling it's so true. And I know you mentioned this as well before, about there's only so much time and energy you have. And there's only so much you can try and convince people of something that they do not want to be convinced about, they do not want to learn. You cannot force certain things. And there is strength in understanding the group of people that are willing to hear you and those that are not, and spending your time and energy with those that are in the amber.
And also, I have compassion for anyone who could be in my description of red.
Yeah.
Compassion, because for me, it's unhealthy for me emotionally to get into a battle with that.
Yes, no, we don't want to do that anyway. Again, that is also not a good use of our own time and energy, and living in that negative kind of space. It's more about controlling how much you give to things. And I think it's even applies even with people you surround yourself with in life in general. Again, that I always say that to just kind of make sure you are selective about who you select to sit at your table of life, who is allowed to pull up a chair and sit at your table of life. And it's kind of the same concept there, understanding where you spend your time and resources and everything. How do you, when you're working with companies, and the reason I'm asking this, we've had a lot of conversations with people who are more of diversity and inclusion experts that go in as consultants rather than coaches, and had interesting conversations about people who are quite resistant to change. And again, when we talk about diversity, it's not just race, it's all sorts of diversity. Have you been in a situation where you're called in to work or do some coaching for an organization, but you're still feeling this resistance from certain members in the organization, and how you deal with that?
Absolutely. So organizations are complex systems. And we have to, and sometimes a complex system doesn't really want to change because it's very comfortable at some level. You have to accept that. So my strategy is always to work within that system and support the people who do want the change. Again, it's back to my traffic light system, Anne.
Yeah.
Where I think there's a massive opportunity is around internal coaching pools. In that, if you think about coaching in organisations, often there's exec coaches who come in and coach a very senior team. And many organisations now have internal coaches. And if you look at organisations and the hierarchy of ladder, very often minorities tend to sit, I'm stereotyping a lot, but if you look at the funnel, more at the mid to bottom levels, and yes, the funnel goes upward, there's fewer and fewer. Therefore, it's very important that, especially in supporting the funnel at the bottom, we need to have coaches who can coach around the lived experience. Yeah. Now, whether that means we have a more diverse pool of coaches or coach, ideally, we need a variety. We want to give people the options of choosing who they want to work with. We're not saying diverse person coaches a diverse person. That's ridiculous. But we need to have the options, because that's where the bottlenecks can be. What I'm also finding is that there's also a challenge actually around how coaching is perceived by some minority groups and how it is marketed and communicated internally. So the work needs to be done is that coaching is often received by some minorities as a performance issue, rather than this is going to support you to get better, to grow and to develop. So there's something around content marketing of how it's perceived. There's something around having a more diverse pool of coaches and more variety and options of coaches, both at senior and mid and lower levels of an organization.
Yes, that's so important what you just said. Thank you for sharing that. And also, so the diversity comes also from the diversity of understanding the individual, not just coaching the individual, but coaching the individual as a group, right? The individual with the surroundings and understanding the conflicts that they may be going through, etc., and having this as an intention as a coach to be able to coach not just people that are from this background, but to be able to coach people from every different background and understanding that and remaining curious. So that's what I love. And before we started recording the interview, you shared with us the quote that inspires you, and we would love to hear that quote. I think that's a nice way to end the interview.
Yeah, so my quote I absolutely live by is by the great Einstein. It's the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know.
That's a brilliant quote. I'm going to ask you one more thing, because I know you're a keen reader. What book has made the most impact on you, and would you recommend for the listeners to also get their hands on?
Gosh, yeah, there's a book called The 4 Agreements. It's Toltec Wisdom. It's a book that changed my life. It's got 4 ways of living. It's a simple book, and for me, one thing that's always stuck with me is what we say out loud, what comes out of our mouths, how to be true to ourselves, how to live a true life. So I'm always very drawn towards wisdom. But the 4 Agreements by I think the writer's called Ruiz, if I'm saying it right.
We'll share it with the audience in the notes anyways, and on how they can also connect with you. So what is the best way to connect with you, Salma?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn is my favorite social media channel. Otherwise, I can share my website details. So absolutely reach out to me. The work I'm doing is beyond coach training. We're moving into, I'm being asked to do reverse mentoring, reciprocal mentoring. So the kernel of what I do is actually very wide in terms of how we can support organizations with it. So absolutely get in touch. I'm always very open to a conversation.
We'll share, yes, your course, the coach training course, as well as your book that's that has come out, because when we will air, it will be 2nd week of April. So it has come out. So we'll share that book. Will there be an audible version to the book?
Oh, good question. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. I'm wondering how that works actually, but I do listen more than I read now due to time constraints. So yeah, so that's why I was curious.
Sure. I have to ask the publisher.
Salma, thank you so much for being on Purple Coach Conversations today. Thank you so much for sharing what you've shared with us. Really appreciate it. Everyone, make sure that you follow Salma on LinkedIn and check out her website and her book as well. And thank you all for being with us here today. Really appreciate it. And then check out our Facebook and website for previous interviews as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.